Welcome to our tutorial on creating a custom pagination control library in WPF. In this video, we'll be taking our pagination implementation from our main application and transforming it into a reusable custom control library. We'll be covering everything from setting up the project to implementing the view, handling commands, and adding custom styles. I have deployed this custom control to NuGet. I will describe how to use this NuGet custom control. Before jumping into coding, I will show you the final result of this tutorial. In this app, I have added 3 pagination custom controls. The first one is independent from the other 2. You can click the next and previous buttons. Also, you can click the page button to jump directly to a page. For this pagination control, we just need to pass the page count and the current page index. The current page index is two-way bound to the main app and the custom control library. Let's jump into coding. I have already created a simple WPF application. In the main window, I have added a text block to bind the current page number. For this main view window, I have added the data context class of main view model. In that class, I inherited from my notify property changed. I also added a bindable integer property for the current page number. Now, this app just renders the current page number. Let's edit the view first. I will add the grid row definition. You can easily do this with a stack panel. In the final part of the video, I will change it to a stack panel. I will add 2 rows. Then, I will set row 0 for the page number text block. I will set row 0 for the page number text block. To create the pagination control, I will add another grid. Inside that grid, I will add a stack panel with orientation set to horizontal. Let me show you what we need to create. In this example, you can see there are 7 buttons and 2 pagination indicators. So first, we need to create those, and next, we can add the click handler functions. Let's add the buttons. First, add the previous button. And give it this symbol to indicate the previous button. Before adding the other buttons, let's give some styles to these buttons. So I will add a window resource and create a new style resource with the key, pagination button, and target type of button. Next, apply this style to the previous page button using static resource and the key, pagination button. Now let's add some styles to it. Set the background to transparent. Set the foreground to this color. Set the font size to 20. Set the margin to 1 on the left and right, and 0 on the top and bottom. I want to edit the border of the button. To do this, we have to edit the template of the button. Let's edit that. Set the control template target type to button. Add a border with padding of 10 on the left and right, and padding of 5 on the top and bottom. Set the background with template bindings. Set the corner radius to 5. Inside this border, render the content of the button. Add the content presenter with a bottom margin of 1 and set horizontal and vertical alignment to center. Let's add other components of the pagination control. Add a small rectangle to separate the page number buttons and the previous button. Set the width to 1, margin to 3 and 7, and fill with this color. Next, add another button for page 1. Set the content to 1 and apply the style of static resource, pagination button. Let's copy this button and paste it 3 more times. Change the content to 2, 3, and 4 to indicate the numbers. Copy the above rectangle again and paste it here. Also, copy the previous button and paste it after the rectangle. This is the next page button, so change its content to the next symbol. Now let's check the updates. You can see the buttons look nice. Next, we need to add a hover indication to the button. Inside the style resource, add new style triggers and set the trigger property to isMouseOver with a value of true. Change the background to this value and the foreground to white. Let's run and check the updates. You can see it now looks perfect. When you hover over a button, it changes accordingly. I forgot to add button 5. Let's add button 5 quickly. Now, I want to add a border to this pagination control. To do that, I will simply change this grid to a border and set the border thickness to 1, corner radius to 5, padding to 5, margin on the top and bottom to 10. And the border brush to this color. Now it looks nicer. Add another style resource to indicate the active current page. Let's give it the style key, paging button active, and the target type of button, the same as the above styles. Set the background color. Set the foreground color. Set the font size to 20. Set the margin to 1 on the left and right. Let's edit the border the same as the above style. Copy the style key and change one of the button styles to paging button active. Now you can see that button 1 is activated. What we want to do next is, when we click the next or previous button, we need to change the styles according to the current button number. To change the button styles, we need to bind the style property to each button. Let's create that page button style using the prop change code snippet. The type is string and the property name is page button style 1. We have 5 buttons to change the styles, so I will copy this style name property and paste it 4 times. Now quickly change the property names according to the button number. Let's give the initial value of the style to paging button for all button style properties. Next, bind this style property to the button style. Run the application. You can see the error message that we cannot bind the style name directly to the static property name. To do that, we need a style name converter. Let's implement that. Create a new folder for converters. Inside that, create a new class file called styleNameConverter. Change it to a public class. This class will inherit from the iValueConverter interface. Let's implement the interface. This interface contains two methods, convert and convert back. In the convert method, the method accepts four parameters: value, target type, parameter, and culture. First, let's check if the value is a string and assign it to a variable called styleName. Then, attempt to find a resource with the name styleName in the current application using application current.tryFindResource, styleName. If the resource is found and is of type style, it returns the style. If the style is not found, it returns dependencyProperty.unsetValue. I am not going to implement the convertBack method. Let's add this converter to the application. Before that, I will move the style resources to another resource dictionary file called styles.xaml. To add those styles to the application, go to the app.xaml file. Add new resource dictionary and set the source path to style.xaml file. Paste that styles to this style file. Now add the style name converter from the converter's namespace. Give the key as style name converter. Let's add this converter to the style binding of the button. Set the converter to static resource style name converter. Let's check this converter. Change the first button style to pagination button active. Build the program. You can see that the style was added to the button. This style name converter is working fine. Next, let's bind those button style properties to the other buttons as well. If there are more than 5 pages available, we need to show this dot indication for pagination. These dot indications toggle with the active button position. Let's add that dot indication. After the first button, add a text block with a margin of left and right 10, a text of 3 dots, and set the font size to 15 and the foreground to this color value. And set the vertical alignment to center. Copy the text block and paste it after button number 4. Next, we need to implement click handlers for the next and previous buttons. Before adding the command, let's create a base command class for all commands. Create a new folder for commands and inside that, add a new command base class. This is a public class and it will inherit from the iCommand interface. Let's implement the interface. Let's define a new private read-only field execute, which is an action type of object delegate that defines the method to execute. Define a new private read-only field canExecute, which is a func type of object and bool delegate that defines the method to check if the command can execute. Let's get these parameters through the constructor. Execute is mandatory and cannot be null. If it is null, an argument null exception is thrown. The class implements the canExecuteChanged event from the iCommand interface. When handlers are added or removed, the class hooks or unhooks them to the command manager.requerySuggested event. This event is raised by the command manager to request a requery of the canExecute status. CanExecute, this method takes an optional parameter and returns a boolean. It calls the canExecute delegate if it's not null. If it is null, simply return true. CanExecute is optional and set default to null. In execute method, calls the execute delegate. Let's move to the main view model file. Add a new iCommand for the next page command and previous page command. In the constructor, for the next page command, create a new command base with an execute callback function named executeNextPage. Generate a new private method called executeNextPage. Similarly, add the previous page command. Generate a new private method called executePreviousPage. Next, to store the page's value, I will create a new private integer called pages. For now, it is only 5 pages. To execute the next page command, if pages are greater than the current page number, add 1 to the current page. This is previous page command, move these lines here. If the current page number is greater than 1, subtract 1 from the current page. To create the changes to buttons when changing the current page number, I will create a new private method called createPagination which accepts pages and the current page number. If the value of the pages is less than or equal to 5. In the for loop, up to pages, we need to change the settings of the buttons. To set the properties of each of the 5 buttons, I will create a new private method called setPageButton, which will accept the button number and the style string value. Let's add a switch case with the value of button number. If the button number is 1, change the page button style 1 to the style value. For the other 4 buttons, copy this and paste it 4 times, changing the name of the style property each time. Next, inside the for loop, add this setPageButton function with the button number set to I. If the button number is equal to the current page number, change the button style to active, otherwise, it is a normal button style. Now let's bind the next and previous button commands to the view. For the next page command, bind to next page command. For the previous page command, bind to previous page command. Let's run the application. Oops, this is a trivial mistake. In command base, if the canExecute is null, we need to return true before checking the canExecute callback. Change this, first check the nullability. Now it is fine. Now we need to call the createPagination function whenever the current page button value changes. Let's run it again. This time, page values are changing, meaning the button click handlers are working fine, but the styles are not changing. Why is that? Oops, the style property names need to change. That's why if you copy-paste, you need to double-check. Now you can see the button styles change with the current page value. Next, to toggle the next and previous buttons, let's add new Boolean variables to control the button's visibility. Is next page button visible and is previous page button visible? When calling create pagination, let's check these buttons' visibility. If the current page number is less than the total pages, the next page button is visible. If the current page value is greater than 1, the previous page button is visible. Let's bind this property to the button's visibility. Actually, we cannot directly bind the Boolean value to visibility. We can use the WPF built-in Boolean to visibility converter. Get that from resources and give it a key name. Let's add this converter. Copy this and paste it to the next page button, and change the property name. We need to call create pagination when starting the app using the constructor. This next button and previous button's properties are need to change. I have add those into wrong position. Run the application. Now it's working fine. When pages are more than 5, the page button content needs to change according to the current page. To do that, I will quickly add other integer properties for the page number button content indicators. I have created the first button property as pageBTN1. Next, I will copy this and paste it for more times for the other 4 buttons. Let's quickly change the names of those properties according to the button number. Bind those properties to the button's contents. Actually, I will give the initial values 1 to 5 to visualize the buttons when live debugging. Also, I realized when the next and previous buttons are toggled, we can toggle that small rectangle as well. Now, when pages are fewer than 5, we don't want to display the unnecessary page buttons. To do that, we need to bind other Boolean visibility properties to the page number buttons as well. Let's add that Boolean variable for each page number button. Change the property name accordingly to match the page button number. Initially, when calling create pagination, I will disable those buttons' visibility. Next, I will add another Boolean parameter to the setPageButton function to set the button's visibility. Set each button's visibility to this new Boolean isVisible parameter. Next, let's bind these visibility properties to the buttons. For this, we also need the Boolean to visibility converter. To check the updates, set the page's value to some number less than 5. I will set it to 4. You can see now button 5 is not visible. Those updates are working fine. Now we need to toggle those 2 dots indicators. For that, we need 2 more Boolean variables to toggle the text blocks. I will call the first one is first pagination visible and the second one is second pagination visible. Set their visibility to false initially, and then bind these 2 properties like before. These updates are for when the page's value is less than 5. Now we need to implement the logic for when the page's value is greater than 5. First, when the current page value is less than or equal to 3. Set the second pagination visibility to true. Also, set the page's value to more than 5. I will set it to 10. Then for the page buttons 1 to 4, we need to set the page numbers 1 to 4. Using setPageButton, I will set those 4 buttons. To change the content of the buttons, I will add another parameter to setPageButton. It is an integer for the button content. Let's update the function. If the page's value is less than or equal to 5, the content is simply the same integer. Then set each button's content to this content parameter. Next, after setting the first 4 buttons, the 5th button content should be equal to the page's value and set the 5th button visibility to true. Let's check the updates. It's working fine. If the current page value is greater than or equal to pages -2, the second dot's indicator text block needs to toggle. Let's quickly show you what I mean. In this demo app, when the page's value is 10, after the current page number is 8, that second dot's text block is not visible. So we need to implement that. In that case, the page button 1 content is 1, and it is visible, and the first 3 dot text block is also visible. Next, inside the for loop, initialize I to pages -3 and btn index to 2. I equals pages -3, this means the loop starts with the third to last page. btn index equals 2, this means the loop starts setting the third button. The loop continues as long as I is less than or equal to pages. I equals pages. This ensures the loop runs from pages -3 to pages. Increment I and btn index by 1 in each iteration. Set the button number to btn index and button content to I. The active one is the same as above. Let's check the updates. You can see that when the current page number is greater than 8, the updates are working. What we need to do next is implement the middle section. When the current page number is not within the above conditions, it means the current page is in the middle section. First, set the page button 1 content to 1 and visibility to true, and set the first dots to visible. Next, set the 5th page button content to the page's value and set visibility to true, and the second dots to visible. Now we need to set the middle sector buttons 2, 3, and 4. For button 2, the content is the current page number -1 and the style is not active. For button 3, the content is the current page number and the style is active. For button 4, the content is the current page number +1 and the style is not active. Let's run the application. You can see the updates are working fine. Next, we need to jump to the page when the click event occurs on the page buttons, like this. Let's quickly implement that. To do that, we need 5 commands, 1 for each page button. I will name the first command page btn1 command, which can be set privately. I'll copy this and paste it 4 times. Change the names according to the button numbers. After updating all the button content and visibilities, let's call a new function called updateButtonClickEvent and pass the pages and page values. Let's implement that private method. If the first button is visible, it means there are some pages. So if the first page is visible, set the page btn1 command to a new command that sets the current page value to the page content value. Continue setting the other button commands according to the page values. Actually, we don't need to pass these pages and page values to this function. Let's quickly bind these commands to the page buttons. You can see that now we can jump to the page when clicking the page button number. But in this case, the active style is not updated. Let's check the code. Let's remove the initial values of the styles. When calling create pagination, set all the button styles to a not active state. Let's run it again. Now you can see that it is working fine. Now it's time to move this pagination into the custom control library. To do that, add a new project with a WPF custom control library. Name it Pagination Control. Create the project. Rename this control to Pagination. To create the view for this control, I will add a themes folder and add a generic resource dictionary. We also need the commands, converters, and styles. Let's create folders for those. In converters, add a new class called StyleNameConverter. Copy this and paste it here. This class inherits from the I-value converter interface. Also create the command base. But finally, we don't need this command base for control library. I will remove this from the library. Next, for styles, add a new resource dictionary called Pagination style. Copy these styles and paste them here. We need to implement the view of the pagination control, so let's implement all of this in the generic.xaml file. Let's start by adding the style resources. Inside the merged dictionaries, add the resource dictionary source for our pagination styles. Start the implementation of the style, with the target type being pagination. Let's quickly set the class path. Add a setter for the template property. The setter's value is a control template with a target type of pagination. We need the converters, so add those inside the control template resource. The first converter is a Boolean to visibility converter, and the second is the style name converter. Let's add those as we did before. I will quickly add some styles to the border of the pagination control. First, let's implement only the style component as before. Next, we need the dependency properties as well. Dependency property for pages. Set default value to 1. Dependency property for current page value. I will quickly add those, you can follow along. For now, I will add these commands too, but I will remove them later in the video. Let's copy and paste these functions as well. Whenever the current page value changes, we need to update the pagination. To do that, in the property metadata, we can pass the property change callback function for current page property. I will create a new callback function on current page changed to update the pagination. Generate that method. If the dependency object is pagination, set it to control. Now we can call the create pagination function with the values of pages and current page. When the page's value changes, we need to update the pagination again. Let's quickly generate that method. This is same as the current page. Let's go to the main app and add the project reference to the new pagination control library. In the view, I will comment out the pagination block and add the pagination control from the control library. We need to pass the pages and current page values, so let's bind those. I think the pages property is a private property. Let's change it to a bindable property. Now we don't need to call this function inside this main app comment out that function. Let's run it. Oops, the pagination style sheet is not recognized. I forgot to specify the library component. Let's get the style resource from the pagination control component. Let's build the project. Now it's rendering correctly. But we did not set the properties of the other components. Let's implement that. Off camera, I have added these lines to bind the dependency properties and also this given the part names for the buttons. I have also added design time attributes for the buttons. Now I will remove all these commands. Also remove this update button click event function, we don't need that. Using the override on apply template function, first, apply the base class, then find the template parts. Use getTemplateChild and pass the child name. And get it as a button. Generate this previous page button field. Now let's get the template child for the other buttons as well. If the previous page button is not null, set the click event to pass the execute previous page function. For the next page button, pass the execute next page function. For page button clicks, change current page to the page button content. I think this control is good to go now. In the main app, I have removed all unnecessary functions and files related to pagination. I have also added 2 more pagination controls to the main view. Set the current page value mode to 2-way. In the view model class, I have added new properties pages 1 and current page 1, and I have given some values to those. The current page 1 property is bound to the second and third pagination properties. Let's run the program. You can see that all functions are working fine. Next, I will show you how to add some custom styles to these pagination controls. Right-click one of the pagination controls, select Edit Template, and click Edit a Copy. Set a key name. I will set it the same as this. And apply it to the application file. Let's go to the application file. You can see the styles are generated. I would like to move these into the styles.xaml file. Cut the styles and paste them there. Now we don't need the last pagination button style, so remove it. But we need pagination button active, so let's keep it. Also, we need to move this assembly reference to the style sheet. Cut it and paste it there. Now change some style values. I will change the background and the foreground to some new colors. Now you can see the styles are applied. We gave the style key the same name as in the control library, which is why the second and third buttons also have the new styles applied. Let's give this style to the other 2 pagination controls as well. That's how we add some custom styles to our pagination control. I have added this control to the NuGet packages. If anyone needs this custom library, you can download it. I will show you how to do that. Search in NuGet packages pagination control. This one is I have published to the NuGet packages. Install it and you can use it freely. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and hit the notification bell.